bus network review that we're doing at the moment. And those will be discussions that we have with Andy. Ultimately, at the end of the day, as Andy said, people have got to use them, and we've got to ensure that they are viable. The other issue, just as an aside, so there are 40,000, whatever people may think, there are 40,000 trips, car trips, in the morning peak into Cambridge Centre. That's from the villages, 40,000 trips. Normally, there's only about 50,000 people coming in, so normally one person, one car. That's the scenario. 40,000 trips. Cambridge, 135,000 population, something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but 150. West Midlands, Birmingham, 1.1 million population, 186,000 trips coming into Birmingham. That's the difference. It doesn't equate. You know, Birmingham isn't 4 times bigger than Cambridge, it's 10 times bigger than Cambridge. So that's the sort of draw that Cambridge has. Yes, drawing in from the villages. That's exactly what we want to stop. We want to stop the village traffic coming through. We want them to get up at the park and rides, or at the train stations, or at park and cycle, and not bring the cars into the centre. That's the whole purpose. So of course, if we don't kill the demand in the city centre by that 10 to 15%, by some form of demand management, people, unfortunately, the nature is they will carry on driving. So that's why the two do equate. We do want to kill the 10 to 15%, but we think, and it's only think, based on all historical facts that we've got, that traffic will increase by about, congestion will increase by about 30% as a result of all the new housing that's being done. Just another thing, just another plug for Andy. We did a spider diagram of mode of transport. Cycling, 50%, 43%. Top against other comparable towns, the Yorks, the Chesters, the Oxfords of this world. Durham, top. Where was buses? Public transport actually languished the lowest of all comparable towns. We don't use public transport in Cambridge as much as other towns do. I'm not saying what the reason is, I'm just saying that is a fact. That's the usage of public transport. You owe me a pint afterwards.
We're nearly at 1:15, so can I have Richard here and then the stripe jumper, sorry. It's a lovely stripe, and that's the last two. Oh, and here, and that's the last thing. Oh, yes, right.
Okay, so the current plan that was in the presentation was for a stakeholder briefing on the 6th of July. So why can that not be a public briefing? So I think that might be something which the local liaison forum could have as a resolution. You could ask that it be a public briefing. Even better than a public briefing would be a formal local government meeting, so we have a right of access and a right to report. And even better would be if we had the report a few days or even a week before that meeting, so we've got a chance to get the councillors to ask questions on the board report.
Thank you.
So another Richard as well, a striking one. My question, question was really back to your model, which you set out in quite some detail. And I appreciate that you're constrained looking at Milton Road from one end to another. The detail, presumably in these models, is the boundary condition that you set. So the point made there that, so what happens at the end of Milton Road? When you feed back, will it be obvious from your modelling output or your model description what constraints you have applied there? Because presumably you haven't applied an unconstrained outflow from the end of Milton Road. And then the second point, having done that, having set what those are, will you have been testing that against the similar model that's run for Mitcham's Corner, so that we actually do get some idea that these models have been linked up before final solutions are adopted?
Thank you. So this evening I counted 10 cars parked on the verges, double yellows and pavements on Milton Road alone. So what is going to be done in the projects to stop this happening? Because it'd be a very, very big shame if we had all these lovely verges and then they just turned into dust because people were parking on them all the time.
Okay. I mean, oh, sorry.
Thank you. Right. Yes, you mentioned earlier on, when you were talking about the sections, about the potential impact of multiple signal sequences on queuing. And I wanted to be assured that you would make sure that you have looked at that carefully to avoid the sort of scenario, which I know is outside the remit of this, but that happens at the science park, where actually there are times when it would be quicker to coming into town to queue jump down to the traffic lights, go into the science park, round the roundabout, back out again to get down Milton Road while you're sitting there waiting outside Taylor Vintner. So that's one thing. You need to be aware of what the impact is of side roads and rat running. And the other one is, you said that cars coming in along or going out along Milton Road will have priority over side roads, but our car drivers are not familiar with that kind of constraint, and I'm nervous of the safety aspects of that, with cars wanting to come out and looking forward around the corner and either being in the way of or actually knocking over cyclists. We know we've had fatalities on that road with cars coming across the side roads onto Milton Road and killing cyclists.
Okay, so can I take the first one? Can I throw that to you, Jocelyn? That might be something you might want to talk to Lewis about. Is that okay?
Absolutely, yes.
And
The question about the stakeholders briefing on the 6th of July, whether it should be an ordinary LOE meeting. So we'll take it on.
so the next question I think was about the modelling and what impact do we take at the ends of the model, because obviously the constraints there. Just pass that.
Just to be clear, the PRIX model we've built covers the whole of Milton Road and parts of the network beyond Milton Road. So we can look at the side roads, we can look at the junctions at either end. So the model just doesn't effectively come to a brick wall at the end. The traffic is operating on the network and it goes beyond. Eventually it goes outside of the scope of the model. That's well outside of the Milton Road corridor itself. So, we have the ability to see the impacts not only on Milton Road but on the side roads and at the key junctions on any road.
Thanks, Richard. The other question.
Sorry. It's just that we do have to. It's your question.
When I look at
Okay, so well, it sort of ties in with the trees and the verges. That is one of the consequences, of course, of people coming in, because people come in, they'll park up as close as they can and then walk or even cycle in the rest of the way. Part of the idea is to get them out of the car so they don't even get there. But the answer to your question, the straight answer to your question is, we are looking for a controlled parking zone. So that will limit the amount of commuter traffic that can park in the area. It will be more predominantly towards residents, and making sure that where residents, for example, haven't got off-street parking, that we provide off-street parking in adjacent roads, so we can try and accommodate everybody. Yeah, but there's no... Well, if there's restrictions there, they'll get ticketed. Well, we will make sure they do. It's a good point. We will make sure they do if that's the case. Yeah, multiple junctions. That was the point I was trying to make on multiple junctions. That if you get too much delay there, people will start looking to do all sorts of alternative things, and people are very inventive, particularly when they're in cars. So yes, we will model that and make sure that we see the impacts of that. And the last thing we want, that's why we're saying there could be an issue with the multiple junctions within the do optimum, that it could cause delays, and those delays could inadvertently end up with consequences you didn't expect, unintended consequences. So yes, that is something we look at. Going back to the final point then, in terms of looking at the minor roads and cycling across. That isn't something that's done in this country, so you're right to raise that. What we're trying to do, and hopefully trying to demonstrate to you, is that was something that was suggested within the resolution, and that's something we are keen to look at. Yes, there is the caveat that it's got to be safe. But I come back to some of my earlier comments that, you know, it's all right as all sat in this room, and you may then all shout at me, but it's all right as all sat in this room. I was once at a meeting where a guy slagged us off uphill and down Dale about an incident that had occurred at the top of a hill in a village, and a kiddie had been knocked down, coming out the front of a bus. Not serious, but still knocked down. He then, and very verbal at the meeting, he then had the audacity to tell one of my officers that he'd actually been caught for speeding in the village. And you just wonder where people come from at times. So it is about culture, but if we can do it, we will look to do it. But safety's got to be paramount.
So, I mean, my concern was that might cause loads of ugly signage to stop people.
Well, yes, that's what we've got. We do end up with a lot of signs if we're not careful. I mean, that's what we'd have to look very carefully. It would have to be something that we'd have to get dispensation for to actually trial and do. But your point is well made, and it is something we are alive to. But we want to try and accommodate as much as we possibly can within the resolutions and the do optimum.
That's a good point to end on, do optimum. Before we do say thank you very much to Chris and before we do say thank you very much, I've instructed that the presentation will be posted on the website tomorrow, so it will be there. I know that there are concerns about the website and finding it, but it will be there to be found on the website. I just remembered also that when I did introductions at the beginning, I should have actually mentioned that in addition to Councillor Richards, who is new on the local liaison forum, Councillor Machini is new too. She represents King's Hedges, but she is a new representative on the LLF, so we're pleased to have her too. And Councillor Brandon, I did mention that you're now a county councillor as well. And I should add that Councillor Manning, of course, is the new seat of Chessington, which combines east and west basically. But may we say thank you very much to everybody for coming, and thank you to Andy Campbell in particular, because that was very much appreciated that you attended. Thank you very much to Chris Tunstall for the presentation and for answering the questions so well. And the questions that were put earlier, we will put to Councillor Herbert so that you will have responses to them. And I'd also like to thank Paul Van der Walt for attending as well and coming so that we can all see that he is the new Milton Road Project Manager. And Richard Preston for coming as well with his interventions, constructive interventions. And I see that Neil's here, Neil Holton. So it's lovely to have Neil Holton, who's from the consultants. So thank you very much, and our very special thanks particularly to Chris Tunstall.
It's been a pleasure. There was one question that was asked about the new optimum that I didn't answer. No, it's not on our website, but it is on the Milton Road Residents Association website. We will put it on our website as well. So thank you for raising that. Yes.